first.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I realise we're sort of operating on reduced numbers today, so we really appreciate you being here, really appreciate your attention, and hope we'll get some good discussion at the end. All right, let's get into it, maybe. All right, as Glenn said, I'm Claire. Hi. I'm one of your LDEG committee, and I represent the Northern Branch. And I'm also one of the land development engineers for Tauranga City Council. So I'm going to take some time today to get you all up to speed with the work the committee have been doing on National Subdivision Standards and NZS 4404. And this is a really important topic for our industry, and it would be remiss of us as a committee if we didn't use this opportunity to hear the opinions of people who work with the standards like 4404 on a daily basis. This afternoon, I'm going to give you a summary of our work to date, and immediately following, we're going to go into a time of discussion where I really encourage you to give us your feedback or ask any questions you have on our case for change, which you've all had copies on your table throughout the day. So we also sent this out prior to the forum, so hopefully you've all seen it in some way, shape or form. So yeah, get prepared to have some good discussion. All right, so this is our journey so far. Last June, we issued a survey to gauge opinions on the existing 4404 document. The committee took some time to review those results and decide on a course of action. We then decided to move forward with a workshop which delved a bit deeper into ideas and challenges with our current processes. In November, Peter Higgs met with MB to discuss the future of 4404. And last month, as I've just said, we circulated our case for change document for your review. That brings us to today, where we hope to get your guidance on what our next steps might be. So going back to last June, we distributed our survey across the country via the IPWEA newsletter and by direct email to those who had previously attended LDEG forums. We had 53 responses to that survey, and you can see how that breaks down on the slide. What information did we get back from that survey? A majority of respondents either use 4404 with local amendments or their own council written codes and standards to assess infrastructure designs. Only 6% of respondents solely used 4404. There was a general consensus that the current 4404 document was lacking in that it doesn't support alternative design solutions. The drawings are not comprehensive. It cannot cover location-specific issues, and there are topics and sections that are either missing or require attention. As we all know, hot topics at the moment are natural hazards, climate change, and resilience, and it was felt that 4404 needed to deal with these better. No surprise that stormwater also appeared on the list. And as we move into areas of land that are more difficult to develop, it was recognised that we need to address alternative methods of wastewater disposal, such as low pressure sewer, which we've heard about today, as well as geotechnical challenges and complications. We then asked for your suggestions or priorities or approaches, and it was felt that if a new standard was produced, it must be flexible, cover the basics well, have an approved products list, allow for local amendments, include acceptable solutions, and align with the LTP cycle. As a committee, we didn't want to dictate that a completely new standard was the only way forward. So we also asked if there was interest in developing regional standards, and 75% of survey participants said they would support this. 60% of participants expressed a willingness to contribute either expertise or finances to our review, and 37% expressed interest in attending a workshop to further discuss the topic. So taking on board the results of the survey, the committee decided it was worthwhile to go ahead and hold a workshop. And this took place in October, and we had 34 attendees and 16 entities represented. Our facilitator, Alicia Mackay, took a high-level approach to discussion and took time to understand the challenges we are facing and how we might overcome them. We moved through the day in 3 stages, from awareness of the issues to alignment with each other and our shared priorities and outcomes, and finally, on how we can act and what our next steps might be. Issues we identified ranged from the technical detail to national matters. We discussed our challenges with stormwater design, natural hazards, and geotechnical limitations, which all aligned with the feedback we had already received from the survey. We also discussed the complications of ownership, how we ensure quality infrastructure, and how we deal with evolving levels of service. The discipline of development engineering is varied and complicated, and while we have a responsibility in the detail, it is recognised we are also affected by national issues like skill shortages, political interference, and the introduction of new laws and regulations. Taking all these challenges into consideration, we then looked at our priorities. Why do we do what we do, and what are our target outcomes? This is what we came up with. Community. A community can't function without good infrastructure, and when it's done well, we create better social, cultural, and health outcomes. Relationships. When we take the time to build relationships with our peers, our community, our developers, and so on, we develop a mutual respect and trust. This makes it easier to have these kinds of conversations and encourages people to get on board with ideas and to collaborate. Developers. Having alignment across the industry gives developers more certainty. They know what to expect and can plan accordingly. Financial. Aligning ourselves ensures better value for money and future-proofs our outcomes. Infrastructure. As I've said, infrastructure is the basis of our communities, and it should be our priority to provide quality, sustainable assets. This not only gives us confidence in designs, but also gives us more certainty to our future when we consider valuations and renewals. So how do we achieve these priorities and outcomes? By collaborating. We cannot work in silos. Our sector relies on too many other things and people for us not to consider the needs of others. We need to move past our public entities being seen as dictators and only following the rules in black and white, and work with our developers and stakeholders to achieve appropriate outcomes. Quality. By ensuring high quality, sustainable infrastructure is installed that meets current and future needs. And by taking an integrated approach across the sector on national issues. So we identified many ways in which we could achieve our outcomes, some more straightforward than others. But something we can all do now is leverage this forum and its resources for knowledge sharing and collaboration. You can use this time you have together to make connections and pick each other's brains about issues I'm sure are common to us all. Away from the forum, you can also utilise our LDEG online discussion page, which can be found on the IPWEA website. You can post issues, queries, and challenges here and get feedback from numerous development engineers across New Zealand and Australia. It's a great resource, and it's not being used to its full potential, if I'm honest. Moving into the bigger picture, we identified a need to revive 4404 in some way, shape or form. And I'm sure you'll agree this is a mammoth task, but as a committee, we're willing to tackle it on your behalf. The question remains, however, on the finer detail of what this might look like. Governance, funding, what kind of review is needed, implementation arrangements, can we gain political backing? Do we also need to look at supporting documents like best practice guides and performance criteria? And we'd love to hear your ideas on what this might look like as well. We therefore produced a case for change, which you've hopefully seen on your tables. And this is our starting point, which addresses the issues that I've presented to you today. So what's the purpose of our case for change? As it currently stands, we rely on a number of standards to assess the design and construction of infrastructure. This makes it difficult for developers, their representatives, suppliers, and contractors to understand requirements in different areas. We want to develop a unified approach to standards for infrastructure and subdivision and land development that provides consistency, but also allows for local solutions and flexibility. The case for change highlights the need for significant change to the content, delivery method, and business model associated with 4404. It makes recommendations regarding how the content should change and what a new delivery method and business model could look like for the next edition of the standard. It suggests funding models that could be used to carry out the review and implementation. It also takes into account the context and environment that is significantly changed, for example, sustainability, resilience, climate change. Land development engineers play an integral part in ensuring development of land is appropriate and constructed to standard. As an industry, we must juggle a variety of challenges in our day-to-day roles. We must plan for the future while constructing infrastructure in the here and now. We must ensure the ratepayer gets the best value for money, while also ensuring development is feasible. And we must also respond to social, economic and political changes while also aligning with local policies and plans. Conducting a review of our current standards could go a long way in helping our industry overcome these challenges. Our aim is to accommodate innovation, keep information current, provide greater accessibility, and ensure faster deployment of revisions. Although it is acknowledged the current standard does contain some excellent material, its current condition is considered no longer fit for purpose, given our rapidly changing environment and lack of unified adoption across the country. The problems with the current 4404 document have been outlined throughout this presentation, but to summarise, the use of the code is not well defined in its use across the country. It's not clear what would drive councils and users to reference this document when they are looking for best practice guidance. Many councils use parts of the code, but mainly rely on other local documents and district plans to set development requirements. Sometimes, even neighbouring councils require different standards for what essentially similar situations. Therefore, developers and suppliers are faced with different requirements and inconsistencies within regions. We therefore have an opportunity to develop a consistent approach to best practice. The code content and delivery method is not user-friendly. There are many aspects of the flow and structure of the document that need reviewed to make it a must-have tool. We need more relevant case studies and a larger suite of standard drawings to make it a dynamic and complete resource. There is a need for a living document that allows for continuous improvement and moderation. Also, the code is getting out of date. It's been 10 years since its last review, and there has been significant changes since then, including social, economic, political changes, alignment to policies and plans, and of course, environmental and climate change concerns. By addressing these issues, we can create numerous benefits. We can respond to the community's needs now and into the future and provide consistent levels of service. We can reduce cost and time impacts during consent processing. We can improve relationships with stakeholders. We can consider whole-of-life costs and future-proof outcomes. We can consider things like climate change and resilience. We can increase the capacity and capability of our development engineering industry and ensure training and support is provided for the sector. So, what are our options? Well, we can, of course, do nothing. This means we have a code that everyone is familiar with and we don't have to spend any money. However, as time moves on, 4404 continues to lose its value and becomes more out of date. If we do nothing, inconsistencies continue and we don't address any of our issues. Our second option is to refresh the code without changing the delivery model. This would not be as costly as a full review and would at least update the content. It does not address the need for a new, more accessible delivery model. It is likely to have minimal impact on the sector and therefore limited uptake, and ultimately, it's a missed opportunity to make a difference. Our next option is to repurpose the code, change the delivery model, and develop consistency regionally. This would have a significant impact on the sector and would hopefully have a greater number of users. Providing consistency regionally would improve the sector reputation and we would easily capture regional differences. This, however, will have significant costs and require significant resources. It would not be feasible to rely on volunteer labour to achieve this. Our final option is to repurpose the code, change the delivery model, and develop consistency nationally. This would have the best impact on the sector. We would have better awareness and adoption of infrastructure management, and as I've said, it would improve our reputation and increase the number of users of the standard. Again, this will have significant resource needs and costs, and also regional differences would still need to be captured in regional addendums. So each option has its pros and cons, but as a committee, we believe that doing nothing does not deliver on the purposes or benefits that are outlined in the case for change. In considering the other three options, with the greatest change comes the greatest cost. However, we must also consider the ongoing costs to individual councils when updating their own standards. Overall, just providing a review of the code as per option 2 is not likely to be the most cost-effective when considering collective costs to the industry. Reviewing our work to date, the Land Development Engineering Group Committee recommends the following way forward. Step 1 is to engage with the sector on change through the LDEG forum, and that's what we're doing today. Step 2 is to engage with the wider sector and stakeholders, for example, TLAs, developers, consultants, contractors, suppliers. Step 3 is to undertake a detailed business case. And step 4 is to review and update the NZS 4404 document with a regionally or nationally consistent approach as per options 3 and 4. To achieve these steps, there may be potential for some sub-projects, such as production of the business case to justify our case for change, programme and project management resources, putting together a focus group to review proposals, putting together resources to conduct stakeholder and customer engagement, development of funding opportunities, and providing governance and steering group resources. Of course, there are a number of risks involved in undertaking a body of work like this. Commitment from TLAs and developers is essential, so we would need to ensure an engagement plan is developed to actively engage with the appropriate stakeholders. The funds required to complete the project are currently unknown. we would need to ensure our chosen method of financing the project is appropriate. So we don't currently have certainty around costs involved, but indicatively, we believe producing a detailed business case would cost around $10,000, and a review of 4404 would cost around $100,000. Financial modelling would have to be completed to prove our proposed approach is affordable, and this would be included as part of the detailed business case. We have a few options for funding, including user pays. This ensures a new document is actually used and it creates a sense of value. However, this does not provide us with funding upfront, so we still have the issue of who will pay for the review. Government funding. The advantages of this would be the government taking ownership. However, it has already been identified that MV will not fund a review of 4404, so there would have to be further thought put into that. Subscriptions. This ensures a consistent cash flow, but it requires more complex administration. A virtual tax. This option gets an initial fund established and creates buy-in, but there may be timing issues obtaining TLA funding through annual plan and long-term plan processes. Regulator funding. This ensures the project gets completed, but again, MV have indicated that they're not going to provide that funding. So overall, it is anticipated that the collective investment of the industry will be reduced with a regional or national standard over individual TLA investments in their own individual standards. This is also likely to lead to a reduction in developer costs through greater certainty and more streamlined engineering design and approval processes. So hopefully, you all now have a better idea of where we want to go as a committee. We've been working hard over the last 9 months to reach this point and are seeking approval from you as part of this forum to start development of the detailed business case, formally start engagement with TLAs, developers and suppliers, and also identify funding opportunities for completion of the business case. So just want to thank you for hanging in there this afternoon. I know at this point we're all starting to flag and get a bit tired, so we appreciate your attention. And as a committee, we appreciate any feedback, questions, comments, whatever you want to say. Now is the time to say it. So we're going to move into our time of panel discussion. And just before we do that, just want to draw your attention to this little piece of paper that you should all have on your tables. So it has a few questions